I finally got the final piece of the puzzle for the rear end for the gray car. That's the first time I've ever got rear end parts in a 5-gallon bucket. But anyway, there it is, my third member for the 9-inch. There's the gasket. I went ahead and put some paint on the housing last night because I knew the rest of the parts were coming today. So we're going to take a break from the Ventura for a little while because this car is top priority. We've got Power Tour coming up. So, oh, I don't have a hat on. I apologize. But anyway, we got to get the rear end out of this car and get that one put back in it because the clock is ticking. I still got some other things I got to do to the car besides just the rear end, but that's kind of been the big thing. And I'm trying to think what else. Oh yeah, I got to do the finish charging the AC system, a few other just little piddly odds and ends. But yeah, I mean, June's gonna be here before we know it, so it's time to get busy. Well, I finally got it out of the bucket. I should have filmed that. That was pretty comical, me trying to get that thing out of there, but there it is. 411s, tree track. It's got a good pattern on it, so ooh, that thing's heavy. But anyway, there it is. So we'll start trying to get the old stuff out and get this new stuff back in it. So I got the oil draining out of the rear end. Went and took the drums off. I'm gonna pull the axles out because I gotta get the backing plates off, because these brakes, if they fit, are gonna go on the Ventura. They're still in decent shape, so, and the new rear end come with all new brake assemblies, so I just gotta take the lines loose and then just unbolt the axles and it should just come right off. So I'm gonna leave the cover off while I'm doing that so it'll drain all the fluid out. Alright, I don't know how good you can see this, but this rear end has these QA1 traction bar things. They bolt at the top of the housing, and then the upper control arms bolt to them, and then they hook down. If you can see right there, they hook down on the rear end. And when I first put this rear end in it, I figured it was going to raise it up the way it raised those control arms up, but it actually made it sit really low. So I put these spacers in it afterwards to raise it back up. But since I'm not going to use those on the 9-inch, I don't think they'll fit on the 9-inch, so I'm not going to use them. So I don't know if I'm going to need these or not. So I'm not going to put them in at first and just see how it sits. And then if it sits too low, I'll put them back in. And I do think I figured out what was wrong with the rear end. I got the drive shaft loose and I turned the pinion and it is roaring. So I think it is the pinion bearings have gave up on it. Alright, the rear end is out. I do have to do a little work to the exhaust while the rear end's out and out of the way. One of my hangers keeps breaking, so I've got to try to fix that. And I think that's it. I think that's all I got to do before I put the new one in. I think I'm just going to put the bare housing in first, so it'll be a little more easy to manage because I ain't got nobody here to help me. I need a shop assistant. But anyway, that was a lot of work, but it's out. But yeah, I think those pinion bearings are shot. I think that's, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's pretty loud. But anyway, I'll get that exhaust figured out and then we'll start going back together with this thing. Alright, so it is all bolted in. Got the upper and lower control arms bolted on. I've got the shocks on. I mangled this shock mount right here and had to rob one off of a different rear end. So that was a pain in the ass. But anyway, it's all in there. So I still got to do the third member and put the axles and all that stuff in. But get my fat ass up off that creeper. It's about supper time. I think I'm gonna clean up a little bit and go get a bite to eat, and I don't know if I'll be back out tonight or not. If not, we'll get back on it in the morning. All right, y'all, it's a new day. We're back out in the shop working on this rear end, trying to get moving this morning. Not being very successful yet, but anyway, yeah, I left a mess out here last night. I just left everything laying. But anyway, we gotta get the studs put in the housing for the third member and try to get this thing installed. I tried cleaning the third member up last night before I went in, so it should be ready to go. I just got to get on there and start doing it, so we'll get busy getting them studs in and try to get this thing back together pretty quick. So you wouldn't think that putting these studs in would be the hardest part of this job so far, but that was a god dang nightmare. They're, you know, splined kind of like a wheel stud, but they just would not go in. And luckily they had the foresight to send extras, because I ruined one trying to run it in with a nut and bolt. I mean with a bolt. God dang, I can't even talk. I'm so flustered. With a nut and washer. And of course they're little fine threaded things, so I stripped one out and had to cut it off. But so I finally had to just get my Dremel and kind of buff those holes out just a little bit, just enough to kind of get them started. And then I got a hammer back in there and got them tapped in there enough to start, and then run them in with a nut and a ratchet. But oh my god, what a nightmare. But anyway, I got it all cleaned up again, and I'm going to try to put the third member in. I don't know if I got enough oomph to pick that thing up and bench press it in there, so I may have to try to get it on the jack, but we'll get it in there somehow. All right, the good news is the third member is installed. The bad news is the U-joint doesn't fit the yoke, so I guess I screwed something up when I ordered that and didn't measure right or whatever. But anyway, so now I got to try to find some type of hybrid U-joint that'll work in the yoke and in the drive shaft, so I'll have to measure all that. But I'm going to keep going, trying to get the brake assemblies on and get the axles in, and at least get that far, and try to get fluid put in it and all that, and then we'll worry about the U-joint later. Yeah, I don't know where I screwed up there, but I've said many times I don't math good, so I probably just measured it wrong or whatever. But anyway, we're just going to keep plugging along, and I got the little T-bolts in for, I guess, put the brake assemblies on first. And it said in the instructions that it's, you know, the axles have seal bearings, but it comes with seals too. I think the seals go in first, and then it's said to put like a little thin bead of silicone where the bearing slides in. And so we'll get all that done, and hopefully get it all back together here pretty soon and try to figure this U-joint problem out. All right, this thing has officially whooped my ass, but it is in there. Everything's bolted in. Got the brake assemblies on. The sway bar didn't want to fit, and I doubt you'll be able to see it, but there's like a little ring around the drain plug that it was hitting on, so I had to trim off of that. So I had to cut on our brand new rear end. I wasn't a fan of that, and it still didn't really want to fit, but I got it in there. But the only thing I like now is I got to find the U-joint. I got all my measurements that I think are correct this time. So I got to try to find one of those and then bleed the brakes and put fluid in it, and it should be done. But yeah, whew, man, what a ass whooping. But it's aggravating. You spend this kind of money on, you know, a high dollar part, and nothing wants to fit right. Like nothing fit the way it, you know. But whatever. It is what it is. I'm still gonna be happy with it once I get it all together and everything, and as long as I don't have any more problems with it. But that's kind of where we're at right now. So I don't know if I'll be able to find a U-joint locally. Probably not. It's been a long time since I've had to buy like a hybrid U-joint. I figure parts houses now, you know, you go in there and try to tell them what you're doing, they just need to know your VIN number, so that ain't gonna work for me. But I think I maybe do a little research first and kind of get a number on what I need and then kind of go from there. But so I think I'm gonna go try to do that, and then we'll get back on it and hopefully wrap this bad boy up. All right, after doing a bunch of measuring and Googling and all kinds of stuff, I went and got this U-joint. I'm not 100% sure if it's the right one. I know it fits in the yoke on the rear end, but I'm not 100% sure on the drive shaft yet. So I'm gonna get it pulled out and go ahead and take the U-joint out and see, and hopefully this will be right. Because if it's not, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but we shall see. All right, so the drive shaft is in. I guess it wound up being the right U-joint, so I guess that's good. I'll show you what I'm talking about on my sway bar. You can see like it is right up against the rear end, so I'm definitely gonna have to get a different sway bar. I think QA1 makes one that kind of goes around the pumpkin of the rear end. So more money I have to spend for this thing, but it is what it is. But we're just gonna ignore it for now. You know, ain't nothing I can do about it today anyway, other than just taking the sway bar off. But I don't feel like wrestling with that thing right now. It was a booger to get on, so I don't feel like taking it off till I get another one to replace it. But the only thing left now is bleeding the brakes, double checking the fluid in the rear end, putting the tires and wheels on, and getting on the ground and see how it sits. Like I said, I did want to put coilovers on it, but it's just not in the budget right now. But if I get it on the ground and it doesn't sit the way I want to, we may just have to bite the bullet and do it, because I really don't want to run those spacers if I don't have to. But anyway, we'll get these brakes bled, say that 5 times fast, and get this thing back on the ground, hopefully. Well, it definitely sits too low in the back. So as bad as I hate to, I'm gonna have to put those spacers back in it. Yeah, I don't understand. Like when I first put this car together, it's got all new springs in it, and it didn't sit like that. Like it had just a little bit of a rake to it. So I don't know if those springs just, you know, got weak or what. I mean, it's just been a short period of time. Probably they've been in there less than 2 years. But yeah, I can't have that. I don't like it. I don't like it. Definitely gonna have to raise it up. So just gotta jack it back up. Damn it. Yeah, that looks way better. I don't like that tail dragging look, which it doesn't now. It seems like it sits a little bit too high in the back, but I think it'll settle. And plus, when we go on power tour, we'll have so much crap piled in it, it'll drop probably 2 inches. But you would not believe the level of sketch it took to achieve that little ordeal just to get those spacers in. I tell you what, I had like that big ass bottle jack between the control arms and the frame, trying to get it stretched out enough, and man, it was rough. And then I got to thinking, it's like, you know, I'm here by myself. Nobody's here, won't be nobody here for a couple of hours at least, and like I'm putting my hands in places it probably shouldn't have been. I thought, you know, if something slips and I get my hand like pinned between the spring and the rear end or whatever, I'm just stuck. Like, so if you're gonna do dumb shit, make sure somebody's there to check on you or help you if you get in a bind. Don't be a dumbass like me. But anyway, it's done. So I think I'm going to fire it up, take it for a little spin, see what it does, make sure nothing falls off or comes apart, and then I think we'll call this done, I hope, because I am really sick of working on this thing. tell I'm gonna have to bleed the brakes again, but I think it'll stop good enough just to go run this thing down the road. It's actually the first time I've drove this car in a while. We've had so much stuff going on and the weather's been crappy recently, so we haven't got to do much. It feels a little squirrely. Maybe I'm just not used to it. I hadn't drove it this long. Speaking of that, I know I kind of griped a little bit about this rear end during the install. The issues that I had with it weren't necessarily the rear end's fault. Most of it was my issues, poor planning on my part or whatever, But really the biggest issue, other than, like the sway bar not fitting, I mean, that is what it is. I mean, I'm putting a Ford rear end in a Pontiac, so, really not that big a shock that stuff don't want to fit. And the U-joint not fitting, that was my fault because I thought I did my due diligence to get the right stuff, and I did not, so that was my fault. And then it's like the little piddly things like the studs not wanting to fit in the housing. I mean, that really wasn't a big deal. And, if I'd have done it maybe outside the car, it might have been a little different. But just, laying under the car with limited stuff, trying to get it to pull through just wasn't working for me. So, I mean, it's really not that big a deal. And, really that was the only issues I had. The other stuff was car related, not rear end related, like the shock mounts. That was just because they were just cheap crap, that were already on the car. That had nothing to do with the rear end. But I will say, the only real actual gripe I have with Quick Performance was how long it took to get the stuff. Which it tells you when you order it, I want to say it said 3 to 5 weeks maybe, but it was a solid 3 months before I got all my stuff. Which, I mean, it's not like this was my daily driver and the car was down. to a race, you know, I mean, that's a long damn time. Would I order from them again? Absolutely. On something that I'm not, you know, in a hurry on, I would definitely order from them again. I mean, they're nice units, and I mean, we'll see how it holds up. I mean, this car's fixing to go on about a 3,000 mile drive pretty soon, so that'll be the true test. We got a few shows here locally that we'll take it to first and try to put some miles on it. I'm gonna try not to raise any hell in it for a little while. Get it good and broke in, double check everything. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I know I kind of bitched about it during the install, but like I said, most of that was just my stuff. That was my issue, not the rear end. I have no problem with the rear end. I have no problem with quick performance. Like I said, it's a nice unit, and I like being able to just slap it in. It's all new stuff, not having to deal with 40-year-old crap, 50-year-old crap trying to make it work. So yeah, I don't have any complaints. So. All right, so successful first road trip after the new rear end. Nothing fell off. So far, it's not leaking anything. It didn't make any weird noises while I was driving it. So, I mean, oop, that shit falling off the shelf over there. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it for this little project. I got to still do a couple little things to the car, but that was the big thing, getting the rear end done. But other than just charging the AC system and just a couple of little minor things, we're ready for power tour. But like I said, we're gonna spend the next month, you know, taking it on a couple of drives here and there, just making sure everything, you know, is still good. I'll probably do a nut and bolt check on it, on like all the suspension and stuff, before we head out. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. You know, she did real good last year, so I hope she does me right this year too. So I think that's where I'm gonna end this video. As always, I appreciate everybody watching. Go work on your junk, and we'll catch you on the next one.